For 1,000,000 years, silence ruled the edge of the galaxy. Stars were born and died, civilizations rose and fell, but from the endless dark, nothing ever came. Until one night, at the Outer Rim listening post, Vigil 9, the night shift was quiet. Commander Alara Voss sat alone in the control room, eyes half-focused on the glowing holographic display. Most of her crew were asleep. The station orbited a dead planet. Its only job was to listen. Listen for echoes of lost things. Then a faint beep broke the silence. Signal detected. Origin unknown. Ilara frowned. She zoomed in on the data stream. The signal was old, impossibly old, but clean, like something cutting through time itself. She ran a quick decryption sequence, expecting static. Instead, a human voice echoed through the speakers. "This is Admiral Corrin of the Helios fleet. We have completed the jump. The stars are gone. We are." Lost in the dark, Alara's heart stopped. "Helios fleet," she whispered. "That name hasn't existed for 1,000,000 years." Her second officer, Rianne, rushed in, eyes wide. "Commander, tell me I'm dreaming." "That can't be real." "It's real," she said quietly. "Origin, deep beyond the Perseus void. A region we mapped is completely empty." The crew gathered around the console. The signal repeated, distorted by time, but the message remained clear. Coordinates followed, ancient, forgotten numbers buried in human archives. A fleet of human warships lost 1,000,000 years ago was calling home. For the next 6 hours, Vigil 9 ran full scans. What they found made no sense. Massive metallic signatures floating in the dark. Half a light year beyond the last charted star, Ilara contacted Central Command. Within minutes, all communications went dark, as if someone didn't want this signal to spread. Rian looked uneasy. "They cut us off. Why?" Ilara stared at the void on the screen. "Because some ghosts are better left forgotten." But she couldn't let it go. Something in that voice, the calm authority of Admiral Corrin, felt human, real, alive. She played it again. "We are lost in the dark." And beneath those words, barely audible, came another whisper. "They are still here." Hours later, the crew watched as something moved in the void. Not debris. Not an asteroid. A ship, massive, dark, and ancient, gliding silently toward them. Rian swallowed hard. "Commander, that's one of ours. Old human design, pre-Exodus era." The ship's hull glowed faintly, symbols shining like starlight. Then, a second ship appeared behind it. And another. And another. A fleet awakening from the dark. Suddenly, Vigiline's power flickered. Lights died. Only the main screen remained active, showing the fleet's lead vessel turning slowly. "Its engines glowing blue again, after 1,000,000 years of sleep," Ilara whispered. "They've come back." A message appeared on the monitor. No one had typed it. "We remember. We return." The station trembled as something vast passed overhead. The darkness outside shifted alive, aware, watching. Ilara stood frozen, eyes wide in terror and awe. Humanity's oldest legend was no longer a myth. The lost fleet had returned. The station Vigil 9 hung silent above the dead planet. The last thing Commander Alara Voss remembered was the shadow, that impossible darkness moving behind the fleet. Then everything went black. Now, lights flickered weakly as systems came back online. Sparks hissed from broken panels, and the cold air smelled of burned wires. Rianne's voice echoed through the half-dark room. "Commander, you need to see this." Lara forced herself up, her head spinning. The main screen blinked, showing the view outside. The lost fleet was still there, hundreds of massive ships, now fully powered. Their hulls glowed faintly blue, their engines burning like stars. But something was wrong. "Why aren't they moving?" Ilara asked quietly. Rian zoomed in on the lead ship, the Helios Prime. Its lights were flickering. Like something inside was fighting for control. Then a message appeared across the console again. Same ancient code as before. "Do not board. They are not alone." Lara frowned. "Who's sending this?" Before anyone could answer, another transmission came through. Not text this time, but voice. It was Admiral Corrin, clear and steady. To any human vessel receiving this, we are returning. Do not interfere. The dark still watches. And then silence. Rian swallowed. He sounds alive. But how? After 1,000,000 years? Ilara stared at the massive ship on the screen. There's only one way to know. We have to go there. Hours later. A small shuttle launched from Vigiline, cutting through the black void. Ilara and Rian sat inside, their hearts racing. The closer they got to the Helios Prime, the larger it seemed, a giant metal mountain drifting in eternal night. Docking complete, Rian said softly. Atmosphere stable. Power. Minimal. The doors opened with a loud hiss. The air inside the ancient ship was cold and dry, carrying the faint scent of dust and oil. Lights flickered weakly along the corridor walls. They stepped inside, their flashlights cutting through the dark. Ancient human symbols covered the walls, some military, some unknown. Feels like walking inside a tomb, Rian whispered. Ilara nodded. A tomb that just woke up. They moved deeper, the silence grew heavier. Then, from the shadows, a voice spoke. Commander Ilara Voss. Welcome aboard. Both of them froze. A hologram shimmered to life in front of them, a tall man in an ancient admiral's uniform. His face looked human, but there was something strange in his eyes. They glowed faintly blue. Ilara whispered, Admiral Corrin. The hologram smiled slightly. That name. Yes. It has been long. Too long. Rian stammered. You've been gone for 1,000,000 years. How are you still alive? Corrin's voice was calm. We are not alive as you understand it. Our bodies slept, but our minds endured within the ship's core. Ilara frowned. You were trapped here all this time. No, Corrin said softly. We stayed. To keep the darkness sealed, before she could ask what he meant, the lights dimmed. A deep rumble passed through the ship, like something large was moving far below them. Rian whispered, What was that? Corrin's image flickered. It has awakened. The darkness followed us when we returned. We ran toward the control chamber. Inside, hundreds of stasis pods lined the walls, each holding a sleeping soldier in old battle armor. Some pods were empty, others cracked open. Ilara's breath caught. They're waking up. Corrin's hologram reappeared beside her. They were the first humans to face the void. Their bodies were changed, adapted for endless war. When the fleet vanished, so did the enemy. Or so we believed. Ilara looked through the glass of a pod. A soldier's eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly with the same blue light as Corrin's. Are they human? She whispered. Once Corrin replied. But time and darkness changed them. Suddenly the ship shook violently. Alarms blared in both old and new tones. On the screens, movement appeared outside the fleet, dark shapes barely visible, circling in the void. Rian pointed. Something's out there again. Multiple contacts. Ilara's voice was calm but urgent. Corrin, what is that? The Admiral's hologram turned toward the screen. His face hardened. They came from the dark between stars. We fought them once and lost. We sealed them beyond the edge of time. But now, they are free again. The ship's engines roared to life, and the entire fleet began to move. Corrin's hologram turned back to Ilara. You must leave, Commander. The new humanity must survive. The old will hold the line once more. Ilara shook her head. You can't fight them alone. Corrin gave a faint smile. We were never alone. The darkness took much from us, but not our purpose. And with that, his hologram vanished. Ilara and Rian rushed back to the shuttle as the ancient ship's systems powered up. Through the viewport, they saw the Helios fleet forming battle lines, silent giants awakening for war once again. Rian whispered, 1,000,000 years, and they still remember how to fight. As the shuttle broke away, Ilara looked back at the massive fleet lighting up the dark. She knew the truth now. The lost fleet hadn't just been lost. They had been guarding the galaxy all along. And now that they were awake, something else had awakened too. The shuttle drifted silently away from the Helios Prime, leaving behind the ghostly fleet now glowing in the dark void. Commander Alara Voss sat in the cockpit, her eyes fixed on the view outside. Hundreds of massive ships, ancient human warships, were awakening one by one. Engines burned with soft blue light. Symbols of the old human empire gleamed faintly on their hulls. The lost fleet had returned, and they were alive again. Rian broke the silence. "Commander, we need to tell Central Command. This changes everything." Alara nodded, but her mind was far away. "They won't believe us," she said quietly. "And even if they do, they'll try to control it. You saw the message. They wanted to bury this." Rian looked uneasy. "But what about that shadow, the thing behind them?" Alara turned her gaze to the stars. "That's what scares me most. If the fleet came back, maybe they didn't come alone." Inside the Helios Prime, chaos was growing. Ancient systems hummed to life after 1,000,000 years of silence. Power cores flared with energy. Thousands of stasis pods opened, releasing mist into the massive hangars. Admiral Corrin stood in the command chamber, his eyes glowing faintly blue. Around him, crew members, half human, half machines, lowly woke up. Their movements were calm, disciplined, but their faces were cold. "Status report," Corrin said, a figure beside him. Once a human officer, now covered in silver patterns, responded in a deep, steady voice. "Fleet systems at 40%. Weapon cores stable. Outer hulls intact. The others, they are waking." Corrin turned toward the holographic map before him. The stars had shifted. The galaxy he once knew was gone. New civilizations had risen and fallen while his people slept. But one thing remained the same, the darkness beyond. "It remembers us," he whispered. The officer frowned. "Do we engage?" Corrin's voice was calm. "Not yet. We wait. We listen." Meanwhile, Alara and Rian had returned to Vigiline. The station was barely stable. Systems flickered as strange signals pulsed through the void. Every few minutes, their screens showed short bursts of old human code-like echoes from the fleet. Rian looked frustrated. "Commander, these signals, they're not random. It's like they're trying to talk to us." Alara leaned closer. "Can you decode them?" He nodded. "I can try." After several tense minutes, the static cleared. The words that appeared on screen made them both freeze. "The fleet remembers. The darkness moves." Then, another message. "The first wave has awakened." Alara exhaled slowly. "They're preparing for something." "Or someone," Rian added quietly. Deep within the Helios Prime, Admiral Corrin stood before a sealed chamber. Its doors were covered in old warning signs and heavy locks. The air shimmered with strange energy. One of his officers spoke. "Admiral, containment is weakening. Should we reinforce the seal?" Corrin's eyes hardened. "No, it must happen. The dark follows light, it always has." He placed his hand on the console. The locks released with a loud hiss. The door opened inside. An eerie glow filled the room. A sphere of black energy floated at the center, pulsing slowly, like a heart beating in the void. From within, whispers echo, low, distant, and hungry. Corrin whispered, "You never die, do you?" The sphere pulsed in response, and for a moment a faint shape appeared inside its hull, shadowed, almost human. "We were born together, Admiral," the voice said softly. "Your light made us." Corrin closed his eyes. "Then it's time for both to awaken." Back on the station, alarms suddenly blared. "Commander," Rian shouted. Energy readings spiking near the fleet. "I think they opened something." Through the viewport, they saw it, a ripple spreading across the dark, like a wave moving through space. Stars flickered and disappeared, as if swallowed by an invisible storm. Rian's voice shook. "It's spreading fast." "What is that?" Alara whispered, the darkness they talked about. The fleet began to move, forming a giant circle. Their engines flared brighter, and beams of blue light connected the ships together. The pattern looked almost like a shield. "They're forming a barrier," Rian said. "They're trying to contain it." Alara nodded. "They're protecting us." But then she saw something else inside the circle. Where the barrier glowed brightest, the black sphere was growing larger. On the Helios Prime, Corin stood before the command window. The darkness pulsed against the shield, roaring silently like a storm. His officers looked to him for orders. "The new humanity must see," Corin said. "They must remember why we fought," a younger soldier asked. "What if they fear us?" Corin's eyes glowed brighter. "They should." He raised his hand. "Activate the fleet. Let them awaken." Command spread across the void. From every ancient ship, lights blazed to life. Turrets unfolded. Energy weapons glowed with a blue fire that cut through the dark. Ilara watched from the station, her mouth open in awe. "The fleet. It's waking up completely," Rion whispered. "They're not just old warships. They're alive." The first blast of light erupted from the Helios Prime, slicing through the void and striking the black storm. The darkness screamed. The sound wasn't heard, it was felt, deep inside every living mind. Ilara clutched her head, gasping. "What was that?" Rion's voice was trembling. Something ancient. Something angry. Outside, the fleet's lights flared brighter than ever before. 1,000,000 years of silence had ended. The awakening fleet had returned to war. The stars were burning again. For the first time in 1,000,000 years, the Helios fleet, humanity's greatest armada, was awake and ready for battle. Hundreds of ships stood against the endless dark, their blue engines blazing like suns. Commander Ilara Voss watched from the station Vigiline, her heart pounding. She had never seen anything so massive, so alive. The old warships moved like a single being, ancient, intelligent, and united. Beside her, Rion whispered, "It's beautiful." "And terrifying," Ilara nodded slowly. "They remember something we don't. A war we forgot." Outside, the dark sphere that had formed near the fleet pulsed again, sending waves of black energy across the void. Every time it pulsed, the station's lights flickered. And Ilara felt a strange cold in her chest, like something unseen was watching her. On the Helios Prime, Admiral Corin stood at the command bridge. Around him, ancient soldiers, part human, part machine-operated, glowing consoles. Their voices were calm, their faces expressionless. "Enemy movement detected," one of them said. "Vector approaching from the outer void." Corin's eyes glowed blue as he looked toward the growing darkness. "So, it begins again," he said quietly. He pressed a control on his arm console. The holographic map expanded, showing black shapes emerging from the sphere. They were huge, shifting forms, neither ship nor a creature, made of pure void and shadow. Rion, watching from the station, gasped. "What are those things?" Ilara stared in shock. "They're alive, but not like us." The creatures moved like smoke and lightning, spreading through the stars. Every one of them radiated hunger and rage. They were the same things that had destroyed the old Empire 1,000,000 years ago. The Dark Ones had returned. Corin's voice echoed through the fleet's network. "All ships, prepare for engagement. Remember your purpose. Humanity stands because we stood before." Thousands of ancient cannons charged with blue light. A single command echoed through the void. "Fire." The first volley struck the darkness, lighting up the void with fire. The energy beams tore through the black storm, breaking it apart, but only for a moment. The shadows reformed, stronger and closer. The enemy screamed. A sound without sound felt inside the mind like a deep pressure. Ilara grabbed her head. "Rion, do you hear that?" He winced. "It's like they're inside my thoughts." On the Helios Prime, Admiral Corin barely moved. His expression stayed calm, but inside he remembered every moment of the old war, every life lost, every friend turned to dust. "They feed on fear," he said quietly. "That was their weapon then. It is their weapon now." He turned to his crew. "We will not fear." A nearby ship exploded, engines consumed by black fire. Debris scattered across the void. The darkness grew stronger. "Admiral," one officer shouted. "We're losing formation." "Hold the line," Corin ordered. Ilara and Rian watched helplessly from the station. The fleet's taking heavy fire, Rian said. If they fall, that thing will spread across the galaxy. Lara clenched her fists. There has to be something we can do. Just then, a signal flashed across their console. It was coming from the Helios Prima data transmission, encrypted in old human code. Rian quickly decoded it. The message read, "We fought them before. The key is light. All data stored in Archive Core Sigma." Lara's eyes widened. Archive Core Sigma. That's inside the Helios Prime. They're trying to give us their weapon data. Without hesitation, she said, "Prepare the shuttle. We're going back." Minutes later, their small ship cut through the battlefield. Wreckage drifted everywhere, glowing faintly in the blue light of the war. Shadow creatures moved like living clouds, smashing into human ships. Alara's shuttle dodged falling debris in flashes of energy. Her voice was steady, but her heart raced. "We get in, find the archive, and send the data back to the fleet AI. That's their only chance." They entered the Helios Prime through a damaged hangar. Inside, the once glorious halls were filled with smoke and sparks. The ship trembled with every impact outside. Rian shouted over the noise, "This way." The archives below deck. As they ran, the walls flickered with strange blue light. For a moment, Alara saw shapes in the glow faces of long-dead soldiers, whispering without sound. "Remember us?" they seemed to say. They reached the archive chamber, a giant room filled with ancient machines. In the center stood a glowing crystal sphere surrounded by holographic panels. Ilara touched the console. This must be it. The system came alive, projecting streams of old battle-date images of the First War. And when the Helios fleet had fought the darkness before, Rian's voice shook. "Look at this. They used a weapon made of light, pure energy tuned to human consciousness. It destroyed the darkness, but also them." Alara stared at the code. "It killed them because it was powered by their own life force." He looked at her. "If we activate this again," she finished softly, "they'll all die." Outside, explosions shook the ship. The darkness was breaking through the fleet's line. Ilara's eyes hardened. "We have no choice." She pressed the final command. A deep hum filled the air. Across the Helios fleet, energy cores began to glow, brighter, turning from blue to white. Admiral Corrin closed his eyes. "So we fight again," he whispered. "May humanity live, even if we do not." Every ship in the fleet released a burst of white light, blinding, pure, and silent. The darkness screamed, pulling back into the void. Burning under the brilliance. From the station, Ilara and Rian watched as the black storm vanished completely. The fleet floated quietly once more. Rian whispered, "Did we win?" Ilara looked at the glowing fleet. "For now," but deep in her mind, she heard a faint whisper. "The dark never ends, Commander. It only sleeps." The galaxy was silent again. For a brief moment, the Helios fleet floated in peace. Their blue-white engines dimmed after the burst of light that had driven the darkness away. "Commander." Rian beside her rubbed his temples, exhausted. "Do you think it's over?" he asked. Ilara shook her head. "No, that was only the first wave. The darkness always comes back." Outside, faint ripples moved through the void. They were almost invisible, subtle disturbances in the starfield. But Alara's heart recognized them immediately. "They're coming," she whispered. On the Helios Prime, Admiral Corrin stood at the command bridge. His blue eyes scanned the void, watching for movement. The fleet behind him was awake, but tired. The soldiers, ancient and powerful, had poured every ounce of their strength into the light weapon that had scattered the first wave. A young officer approached, voice trembling. "Admiral, sensors detect multiple signatures. Not like before. They're faster, smarter." Corrin's expression hardened. "The darkness learns. It always learns." Turned to the holographic map, showing the approaching shape-stark storms moving faster than before, forming into familiar but twisted silhouettes of human ships. "They mimic us," he said quietly. "They try to trick the living into thinking they are one of us." Alara and Rian prepared a small shuttle. They knew they had to warn the fleet. The shadows were no longer blind monsters. They were cunning, hunting the fleet like predators. As they launched, the void outside shimmered. Shapes moved like smoke, twisting around the stars. The first wave had been only a warning. The true enemy was returning. Rian gripped the controls tightly. How do you fight something that learns from every move you make? Ilara didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the growing shapes. Hundreds of black tendrils reached across space, merging and splitting, forming massive figures that could crush a fleet with a thought. By staying alive long enough to fight, she whispered, inside the Helios Prime. Corin activated the fleet's advanced sensors. Scan for anomalies. Track everything. The holographic display flickered as the sensors locked onto the shadows. They moved with intelligence, avoiding the light bursts that had destroyed their first wave. Corin clenched his fists. They've grown stronger. We cannot defeat them alone this time. He turned to his officers. Prepare boarding parties. Use the ancient weapons stored in the lower decks. Every ship must be ready to fight both inside and out. The soldiers nodded, calm but deadly. They were human once, long ago, but adapted by time, war, and darkness. Ilara's shuttle approached the fleet. The massive hulls of the ancient ships dwarfed her tiny craft. She saw soldiers moving along the decks, energy weapons in hand, ready for boarding attacks if the darkness breached. This is insane, Rian muttered. We're going to lose half the fleet. Ilara shook her head. No, they've fought this before. They know what's coming. We just have to survive long enough to help them. Suddenly, a massive shadow detached itself from the main storm. Its form shifted like liquid night, stretching over kilometers. Its tendrils shot toward the fleet like whips. Brace for impact, Rian shouted. The shuttle shook violently as energy from the fleet's shields collided with the dark storm. Sparks flew inside the cockpit. Ilara gripped the controls. Hold it together. Just a few more seconds. The darkness struck the lead ships first. Huge arcs of black energy ripped through the fleet's shields. Explosions lit the void. Ancient soldiers leapt into action, firing energy weapons that glowed white against the black storm. Corin's voice echoed through the fleet comms. Do not falter. Fight as one. Protect the station. The ancient fleet responded instantly. Massive cannons fired, missiles streaked across space, and every ship's energy core blazed bright. The black storm shrieked, pulsing and reforming faster than before. Ilara watched, heart pounding. It's adapting to everything they do. Rian's hands trembled on the controls. If we can't stop it now, the whole galaxy will burn. Then, through the chaos, a faint glow appeared from the core of the Helios Prime. Corin's voice cut through the comms, calm and commanding. Focus on the light. Concentrate the energy. The darkness fears the human will. White beams of pure energy shot from the fleet's weapons, merging into a massive column aimed at the center of the black storm. The shadows writhed and twisted, screaming without sound. Ilara gasped. It's working. They're holding it back. But the shadow was intelligent. It shifted, splitting into smaller forms that tried to escape the light. Rian's voice shook. Commander, it's too smart. It's learning faster than we can react. Ilara clenched her fists. Then we fight faster. The shuttle dodged debris, weaving through the battlefield. Ilara and Rian transmitted the coordinates to the station. AI. The fleet needed to know every movement of the darkness in real time. The shadows screamed again, twisting into grotesque shapes that mimicked the fleet's ships. Some even tried to board the ancient ships, merging into the human soldiers' forms. It's using our fear against us, Rian shouted. Ilara stared out the window at the terrifying scene. The dark had returned, stronger than ever, but she knew one thing: humanity, ancient and new, would not bow. The awakening fleet had fought before. They had survived 1,000,000 years. We may die, she whispered, but we will fight, and we will survive.